What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News. Happy 4th to everybody. Happy Independence Day for the people on this side of the pond. I have to talk to you guys today about Deontay Wilder, and he reveals in an all-exclusive interview on WBN on why he feels Anthony Joshua lost against Andy Ruiz. First off, it starts off with Wilder at age 33 has been forced to come to terms with the fact that the pair will never meet in an undefeated, undisputed battle after Joshua was beaten. Okay? They say that the Bronze Bomber believes the pressure weighing down on Joshua's shoulders ultimately proved too much. He said, "It's like I tweeted before. They kept me away from Joshua because of that fact. They knew that the result that was going to happen, but probably a little earlier than we thought." Wilder exclusively told World Boxing News, we already knew this would happen, but that's boxing. He said AJ had a lot of pressure on him coming to America for one, and then he was worrying about me and what I was doing in my performance against Dominic Breazeale in the first round. All that stuff weighs in on you. He was panicking in the dressing room, and I understand all that stuff. It'll get to you. Certain things you want to perform and do great. Nobody never wants to lose. We want to do great, but when we got so much on you and so much pressure talking about the sparring guys, dropping him in sparring and stuff like that, it's a lot. When your time comes, I understand he just froze at the moment of time, but we'll see whether he can redeem himself in the second fight. He said, "I wasn't shocked at all by Ruiz's result. Me and Shelly Finkel was talking about it, and I asked him how did he feel about it. He said he'd give the fight 6 rounds going Joshua's way, and I told him that I had a different opinion. I said it was going to be all 12 rounds, but don't be surprised if Joshua loses either." And he was saying, really? He was kind of shocked, and I was like, really? He said, "Well, I don't know too much about Ruiz to give him a proper assessment, and that's why he went with that." Now, let me start from the beginning. They kept Joshua away from Deontay Wilder. You know, of course, Deontay Wilder, this is crafty. This is a great opportunity to promote himself once again, because at the end of the day, we're still talking about Anthony Joshua. You know what I'm saying? And Deontay Wilder, he says the pressure was weighing in on Anthony Joshua. Part of that is true, believe it or not. I think that Anthony Joshua denied everything in that press conference after the fight, except for pressure, because when they asked him was pressure on you, he was kind of like, little bit, man. you know what I mean? That type of situation. So he really couldn't, everything else he denied that quickly. But when they asked him about pressure, he was more so, he couldn't lie. So that really tells you that Joshua's not really a lying person. He's not really a good liar. You know what I mean? Because he couldn't just tell people a blatant lie like, no, the pressure wasn't on me. It fucking was. I was coming to this country first time. It's a lot of influence of boxing in this country, and he wanted to make a good assessment of himself. So that, for what Deontay Wilder said, was true. Now, the crafty way he put his own spill on it, he said, they kept Joshua away from me because of that fact, because they know the result was going to happen, but probably a little earlier than we thought. Look, it wasn't because of anybody keeping anybody away from anybody. I think they saw Anthony Joshua as the cash cow, and they felt, well, if we're going to lose, and they didn't know, Team Wilder, they were not 100% sure that they were going to win that fight. See, when you're sure about sure things, look how fast, or should they say, look how fast it took them to make the Fury fight, right? There was no date or no venue to that fight, but that fight was going to happen. Why? Because they wanted it to happen. Okay? They wanted that fight to happen, and that fight did end up getting made. Just like the second one. They really wanted the second one because at that point they knew what there was up against, and they knew Deontay Wilder could possibly land that right hand and end the night, whichever round, from round 1 through 12. But with Anthony Joshua, they weren't so sure. And since they weren't so sure, they wanted to make sure they made the most money as possible. And of course, this was the last words, quote unquote, that Deontay Wilder said. He said, hey, we risk our lives in there. You know what I mean? And, so we feel the fight will happen. It takes time. The time comes patience. And you know what they say? The best comes for those who wait. And we want the most money possible. So it was about money. So now that Joshua lost, and now it's all about, oh, they didn't want him in the ring with me. What the hell are you talking about? It's like you knew that you were offered this amount of money, and you walked away from that $100 million because you didn't know what the next man was getting. So you were worried about another man's deal versus your own deal. That's a fact, people. We can't make anything else out of that. But he's saying that, it came earlier, and I think that Ruiz would beat him or whatnot, and he gave it 12-round decision for the other guy or whatnot. And it tells me that Deontay Wilder, really, if he talked to Shelly Finkel about his decision, if anything, he should be rooting for Anthony Joshua because he knew the money was with that fight. It's not with Fury, people. Let's just be real. The money is not with Fury. The money is with AJ. Not saying he won't make anything with Fury, but the money, that's not the big take. The big take is the golden goose. The golden goose is Anthony Joshua. The golden goose is still Anthony Joshua. But Anthony Joshua has other unfinished business to work on. But this is pre-fight, right? Pre-Ruiz. So, he said that me and Shelly was talking about it, and I asked him, how do you feel about it? He said, I'd give the fight 6 rounds going Joshua's way. Finkel said that, obviously, because Finkel was the same guy that orchestrated Klitschko with Joshua, right? And so he knew Joshua by now. He knew what he was capable of because he showed heart, he showed grit, he showed that he can come back from adversity, and he showed that he has a winner's heart. That's why Shelly Finkel knew. Now I give him 6 rounds for Joshua. But of course, according to this article, Shelly didn't know much about Ruiz either, but he did know about Joshua, though, because he beat one of his fighters, which was Klitschko. The same manager that did not allow Deontay Wilder in the ring with Klitschko because he was a baby. Okay? He's our baby champion. Those are his exact words. I'm not paraphrasing. I'm not saying anything out of line. I'm not saying nothing that someone else didn't say. That's what Shelly Finkel said. Okay? So if Deontay Wilder said, well, I'll give him, I said it was going to go all 12 rounds. Okay? So he didn't even know that Ruiz was going to win. However, he did say, but don't be surprised if Joshua loses either. And he was saying, really? He says, yeah, I don't know too much about Ruiz to give an assessment. Okay, that's what Shelly said. But anyway, these things, when you're dealing with, well, he knew what was going to happen. That's why they kept him from me. You're talking about something that, like, okay, this is a result of something I did. See, this is what bothers me about this interview. It's easy for Deontay Wilder. Like I said, it's convenient. It's crafty. It's easy for him to say, yeah, you know what? That's why they didn't want him to fight me all this time, because they knew he would lose. They knew this. Now, let me counterpunch all this for you guys. First off, didn't the reason why Anthony Joshua lost is because he quit, right? That was the first response from Deontay Wilder. The first response, he said he wasn't a real champion. They say, and he was a quitter. That's why he lost. But now he's saying, oh, it was about pressure, and the pressure weighed down on him, and he had a panic attack. Now you're talking about panic attacks and stuff like that, but nothing comes up about concussion, because that would give a legitimate reason instead of an excuse, which is funny. Anthony Joshua ain't admitting to any of this shit. So he's not using that as no excuse, because it makes sense. You don't want to be that guy that looks vulnerable, even if it did happen, right? But Deontay likes to take that route like, oh, it was a lot of pressure on him. He had a panic attack like he was scared, conveying that because he was scared in that event. That means he was scared this whole time to fight Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder. So it is crafty for him to swing that scenario to his own advantage, to talk about himself, to reflect himself. You know what I'm saying? He didn't talk about anything that happened in the fight. He didn't talk about the strategy. He didn't talk about Ruiz was faster, that he was quicker, that he threw combinations. He didn't talk about any of that shit. You know what I mean? It's crazy. You know what I mean? But he just said because the pressure was on him, that's why they're afraid to fight me. It's an ego trip, guys. It's very egotistical because, if someone asks you about another fighter and you are an egotistical guy like Deontay Wilder is, you're going to find a way to make it about yourself. You see what I'm saying? And that's what he did in this, which is crafty because he's looking like Mayweather did when Pacquiao got knocked out, right? Right? Poked fun, talked shit, claimed to be the best, but didn't even take the test, that type of shit. That's what's happening here. However, I will leave you guys with this. He said this in his last statement. He said a lot of people haven't learned from all these years. They haven't learned because that's how you become a 2-time, a 3-time, a 4-time world champion, he said. Now, he left it with that. And that's also very, very clever. I'm going to tell you why. Deontay Wilder, when I started this, it came off with he has to come in terms with not facing Anthony Joshua for undisputed world championship about like that, okay? And he knew, and this is like his half-ass way of coming in terms with, hey, I fucked up. I did a video about it. He is the #1 main guy that should be kicking himself in the ass because he was the one that was offered the most money to fight Anthony Joshua. Not saying you're going to get more than Anthony Joshua, not supposed to. You haven't done as much, but you got a $100 million offer. He knew that was real. We can debate his $50 million all day long, but we knew one thing about that $100 million. That was real. That was a contract. There was a meeting. That was a sit down. Okay. They conversed about that $100 million. So they knew that was real. So Deontay knew it was real too. And after this, he knows that, hey, after Fury, if he's confident he'll get past Fury, he knows without a shadow of a doubt that that's the only other fight that can be present unless Ruiz beats Joshua again. Okay? So he knows, and he's talking that up. That's why he's saying, hey, you can be a 1-time, a 2-time, a 3-time, a 4-time champion. You can get back up. So without giving Anthony Joshua credit, he did show what the alternatives is for Anthony Joshua. So he knows, hey, that fight can still happen and I won't talk down that fight and I'm not avoiding that fight because the money in it. Because after the end of the day, it's all about money versus the risk of getting that money. Would you lose? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it looks better for Wilder because Wilder did a bang-up job with Dominic Brazil. And he felt, well, he had to compete with Joshua had to compete with Deontay Wilder. I don't know. Maybe he was. You know what I mean? But then again, he thought he had an opportunity to get him out of there, and he was wrong. He had that was the wrong assessment. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think about Deontay Wilder's interview. Of course, please subscribe. Happy 4th to everyone, and you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.